Welcome to Hoosier Gameday. I'm Callie Metzger. This is Jack Edwards. We're in a brand new studio this year. How does it feel, Jack?
It feels great.
I know.
It's bright, it's cozy, it's tucked away in like this little classroom. I'm very comfortable. I'm excited for the season to come.
I am too. Well, we'll be giving you all the analysis you need all season long, and that season starts today. Indiana versus Illinois. Kickoff is at 8 p.m. Jack, how are we feeling about Indiana football 2022?
Well, obviously last year, the elephant in the room, 2-10. It's a new year. It's a refreshing, Friday Night Lights. I think it's going to be very interesting as a fan to go to this one. We have some great experts that join to kind of break down what I'm going to be seeing when I'm there as a fan. But I'm really excited, Callie. I think that, it's a season of possibilities. And really, it's a question of can Indiana respond from last year's setback and turn this into a year of a big storyline of a bounce back from a complete failure in 2-10 to maybe what could be a great comeback story. Right,
and I think that still looking back on some of, IU's notable accomplishments last year, I know it was hard to kind of see through the glasses, but, being down by 3 to Maryland, pushing MSU, close to Cincinnati, those games I think are going to be 3 games that they're going to kind of remember this season, and especially going into tonight. They have the capability to do it. They just got to follow through.
The margins are so fine in sports. And, what they may have won in 2020 or 2019, they could have been very similar in 2021, but the injuries and the downcast nature of the program due to just the way the season kind of got rolling, it was always going to be tough to kind of fight out of those little holes. So I'm excited to see what happens this year.
I am too. And with all the changes that IU football has this year, there is one thing that has stayed the same, and that is LEO.
How did LEO manifest itself during a tough season?
Held us together, and that's the part that, I had somebody ask me on all the millions of questions you get after such a tough year, and almost to where like, did you question it? I'm like, question it? That's what held us together. That's what kept us, from falling apart, and that's what your core values are supposed to do. That's what your foundation is supposed to do. It's supposed to weather those storms and when things go completely against you and things are really, really hard, what's your anchor? And it's accountability, toughness, and love. It's the culture that, man, love's a choice. And since it's a choice, I can choose to stay with you in the good and the bad. And it's easy when everything's going great to be, oh, man, everything's awesome. And then when things go wrong, you do have a tendency to question. But when the foundation is rock solid, then it allows you to be a catapult for your future instead of a crutch.
Interesting insight from Tom Allen, as always. If you want to see the full interview, go to IU Sports Media on YouTube or thehoosiernetwork.com to see the full interview with Max Parker. Today, though, for Hoosier Gameday, I'm alongside Mason Williams of Indiana Rivals. Mason, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's a great day to be in Bloomington. College football is back, and I think there's a lot of optimism surrounding the program, especially with how bad last season was. I think they're trying to wipe the slate clean this year, so it's nice their first opportunity to do so.
Well, we're going to talk about the Illinois side of things, the team coming into town. In terms of last year, changes, a 5-7 team, what looks a bit different from last year's unit?
Well, instantly you'll see it with their offense. They've got a new starting quarterback in Tommy DeVito, a Syracuse transfer. They've already got a game underneath their belt. Last week he came out and had a pretty good performance against the Cowboys of Wyoming. He's kind of a game manager. He'll be sharp. He's not necessarily a downfield passer, but he'll look to kind of control the offense and keep things moving for Illinois. He's the biggest change with this team this year. Just Coach Brad Bielema over there has done a really good job with just kind of building a program from what Lovie Smith left them in, and I think they're on a good trajectory moving forward.
And in terms of guys, if you're either watching it on TV or in the stands, on the Illinois side of things, who's to watch out for as a guy that could potentially cause some problems for Indiana?
Well, Chase Brown caused a lot of problems for Wyoming last week, over 160 yards from scrimmage, 3 scores, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air. He's going to be somebody that's going to be crucial for Indiana's stop tonight if they want a victory, because he's so electrifying. He makes a lot of plays in open space. And another name to watch out for on the outside is their slot receiver, Isaiah Williams. If he can get into open space as well, he could cause a lot of problems for the Indiana secondary. So I think that those two are kind of guys that you'll see instantly kind of pop off.
In terms for Indiana side of things, as well as Illinois, who's happy about this matchup? Because obviously we've seen that Illinois has already got a game under their belt. Indiana has to deal with a team that's got a bit of tiredness potentially, but they've also gotten a bit of rust off. Who do you think is kind of the happier of the two sides that this matchup's happening on this Friday in Bloomington today?
Well, there's dueling advantages, right? Illinois already has the week 1 win under their belt, as we've kind of mentioned already, and they've had the time to develop this week. They've also had time to look at their own film, but Indiana, in the same breath, has had the opportunity to look at the film, and they've been quite uptight playing their cards to their chest as far as, you know, who's going to be their quarterback, who's going to be really just any kind of impactful player on their offense this year. I think Indiana, in a perfect world, I know Tom Allen mentioned this in a couple of his pressers, you know, you would prefer to necessarily have a softer game maybe to start, but I mean, you can't also understate the value of a Big Ten game under the lights at home to start the year. I would say that Illinois probably has a little bit more of an advantage, is probably a little bit happier with the matchup coming in with last week's tune-up against Wyoming, but I think it'll be, you know, there's dueling advantages, there's pros and cons to each side.
And I'm sure that Callie and Evan will break down from the Indiana side of things what the quarterback means for Indiana not having a quarterback selected as of yet, at least publicly. Privately they have.
Right.
From an Illinois side of things, how are they going to be handling that in terms of trying to figure out who's the guy taking the snaps for IU?
Well, they've probably, as you know, I believe Evan is going to mention, talk about their offensive scheme. And Indiana's this year is going to really be looking to open up their passing game through the run game. So I think schematically they're going to try and shut down the run game. Indiana is going to be very focused on that this year. And Illinois is going to want to shut that down if they want the opportunity to win tonight. But I think just in a sense of what Illinois is going to be looking out for, whoever the quarterback is for Indiana, they're going to, you know, just be honed in on the running game, because ultimately that's where the buck starts and stops with Indiana this year.
We'll get your predictions at the very end of the show, but now we're going to go to a bit of hype, you know, for the season, from the lens of Alex Paul and the voice of Max Parker, getting ready for the 2022 football season.
The thing about the past is that you can't change it. What's done is done. The only thing you can control is how you respond.
I couldn't end on that note going 2-10.
It doesn't matter how many times those moments are replayed. It doesn't matter how many people say they can't do it. Because that's when the world finds out what they're made of.
Controlling emotions, I'm owning the moment. In order to get it, see, you gotta want it. This type of flow make a living break. Confessions over these 808s. Don't sleep on the key, better stay away. I mean, for heaven's sake, I'ma be the best. Came from the endless, playing with the games, bitch with the chest. Be beating on my chest, trying to get my rest. Watch me while I flex. Every win is a blessing.
And now, it's time to see what LEO means to them.
Love's a choice. And since it's a choice, you know, I can choose to stay with you in the good and the bad.
Well, for a team that went 2-10 on the season, that's, I think, as hype as they're going to get. I mean, that video was great, but hopefully they can extend that excitement this season. Evan, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, first we're going to start with, I'm going to go into some things. Tom Allen, his 6th year at IU. The 2021 season, they want to put that, they have to get off to a big start to put that ugliness in the rearview mirror this year. What are your expectations around the program still with Allen's reign?
Yeah, it's a lot tougher to say this year for sure. You would have thought a couple years ago we'd be talking about a team that's somewhat regularly competing for the Big Ten, and then last year happened and you realize, okay, maybe that's not going to happen. So the expectations are a lot different this year. You just want to see a good step forward. Mm-hmm. A lot of freshmen coming in one of the best recruiting classes in program history. So that's the guys you're kind of looking forward for the future. You're trying to see them take steps forward. A lot of the younger guys. But you're still expecting this team to win some games. Like, that's what Allen is here to do, is he's here to help this team win games for a program that has not had a lot of history of that. 5 losses this season, which seems very likely, and Indiana becomes the first program to lose 700 games in their program history. So whatever Allen can do this year to kind of get that sour taste from last year out of his mouth, I think fans they won't be happy, but they'll be satisfied.
Right. And talking about some of those changes within the program, we have a new quarterback in the mix, new receivers, new coordinators. What is your predictions, expectations for this team's new sort of reinvention?
Yeah, there's a lot of new stuff that you could be excited about.
Right.
I really like the wide receivers room just because it's so all over the place, which doesn't sound like maybe a great thing, but I think it'll be fun to watch. You've got a former quarterback, a star freshman, you've got a transfer from JUCO, a transfer from the SEC, a transfer from the ACC. You've got guys kind of coming in from everywhere to really mesh together, all under DJ Matthews, who's really your number one guy coming into the season. You also got AJ Barner, who's taking over the tight end role. And then you've got the quarterback position. We don't know what's going to happen when they take the field tonight, which is a little bit scary, but also it could be very fun. It's been a lot of fun just trying to guess who's going to be the guy that comes out. My prediction has been kind of basic. I think that's where most people are sitting, is that he's going to be the guy that's starting, transferring in from Missouri. But there's still a chance it could be Jack Tuttle. We don't know. And that's something we're going to find out pretty soon. But whatever it is, he's got to step up from whatever Indiana had at the quarterback last year.
Right.
They ran through 5 different guys. Obviously, Penix got hurt. Tuttle got hurt. Donovan McCulley wasn't throwing very well.
Right.
Grant Gremble got hurt. And then Dexter Williams, who was in that order, didn't play last year because of his torn ACL. So a lot of different views at quarterback last year. And you just need someone who can play the entire season.
Right.
I think that would be huge for Indiana, just to get one guy who kind of takes control of the offense and you can rely on game in, game out.
Right.
With a new offensive scheme under Walt Bell, we don't really know what it's going to look like. But whoever takes that position is going to have a lot on their plate to try to make sure this offense takes large strides forward from last year.
And just something touching upon that, just because the quarterback position is so up in the air, for Illinois, do you think that's do you think that's going to interfere with the game they play today, not knowing who's playing in that position? Also with the new coordinators, just the whole new setup. Do you think that's an advantage for Indiana in the game tonight?
It's a small advantage, and it's not so much the quarterbacks as it is the scheme. They don't really know what kind of offense Walt Bell is going to be running at Indiana. They have an idea based on his previous spots. He was offensive coordinator at Maryland and then the head coach at UMass before coming here. So that's kind of probably where they're studying film to see what the offense looks like. I don't think either quarterback is different enough that you're going to come out and be like, oh, we've got to completely change our game plan based on this quarterback or this quarterback, because I think they're pretty similar archetypes of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But not knowing what the offense is going to be running is definitely going to throw a wrench in Illinois' plans. It's going to be a lot harder to game plan for that. But I think probably by the end of the first quarter, they're going to be pretty settled in and know what to expect for the rest of the game. So if Indiana can really catch them flat-footed, that would be huge. But it offers them a little bit of an advantage, but not a huge advantage.
Right. And finally, what is it going to take for Indiana this year to kind of, like I said at the beginning, put last season in the rearview mirror? Obviously, last season with injuries on top of just the fact that the Big Ten wasn't that bad last year. But what went wrong necessarily last year that you can touch more upon? And what is it looking like for IU? What is it looking like for IU?
Well, the quarterback is one of them. Yeah. Obviously, we talked about that. That's a huge thing. Also, health in general. Just the team was not healthy, which, again, quarterback issue. But a lot of different positions. DJ Matthews went down. Just guys who were not fully healthy. And a big part of that was the secondary. You've actually got a really good returning group in the secondary. You've got Tywan Mullen, who's a preseason All-American selection. You've got Devon Matthews, who's been really good in his time. And you've got Jalen Williams, who's been really good across from Taiwan in the cornerback position. If those three guys can step back up to where they were in 2020, that's automatically a huge step up for Indiana.
Right.
Turnovers are a really big thing, so they need to get some interceptions. Hopefully the defensive line and whoever steps up in the linebacker position can kind of cause some havoc in the backfield and make some poor decisions.
Right.
But those guys have to step up. And I know that this year they're trying to switch more to a zone defense instead of as much man defense, so they can kind of cover and try to get those tip balls and stuff. But those are the three big ones, those three guys on defense who need to kind of go back to what they've been before in order for Indiana to really kind of take a step up. That defense has been their strong suit, especially under Tom Allen, who's a defensive mind. He's calling the plays again. That can really make a huge difference for what this team and what they look like at the end of the season.
And we're talking future, we're talking predictions. I've been asking Evan a lot of what he thinks about the season, what he thinks about IU, what he thinks about quarterback, whatever. But what is your prediction for the game tonight?
Yeah, I'm not going to be the most positive here. I'm a little bit nervous about all the questions, and there's no depth chart. We have no idea what this team's going to look like, and I don't think teams who are super confident in their abilities usually do that. I'm going to say Illinois had a good game last week. I think they're going to come out. It's going to be 31-21, Illinois victory, a sour start to the season under Tom Allen.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite, and I'm going to touch upon kind of what I asked you earlier, in that the fact I think that Indiana has a huge advantage tonight, just not kind of announcing that starting quarterback position, also just the new kind of reinvention I talked about a little bit. And I think that's just the kind of push that IU needs to kind of get a head start. And I think I'm rooting for them because this team deserves a win. And we all know that after, watching some IU football. So, but Jack and Mason, who do you got?
Well, thanks, Callie. Some interesting predictions there. Back here with Mason, I'm just going to go right to you. Who you got in this game?
I'm going to agree with Callie here on this one. I think Indiana has the better team on paper. Illinois, I believe, has the the advantage that kind of outweighs Indiana's with rolling into this matchup with a game in hand already, kind of having that development period already. But I think the secrecy around the Indiana offense, it's going to work to some sort of extent for Indiana. And I'm going to go with Indiana 23-21 over Illinois tonight.
A narrow one. I think I'm going to agree with your choice of team, maybe a little bit of a different score, but I think my rationale for it is look at who is more prepared for this game. One team has film of their opposition from their first game. The other has no film and no idea who the starting quarterback is. Maybe, you know, the difference between Tuttle and Bazelak, it might be marginal. There might not be a huge margin of difference between the two of them, but there is a bit of difference there. So I think for Indiana, it will be a set it for the season. You know, if they can't win this game with a good amount of prep at home, Friday night, perfect conditions probably for a first win of the season. If they can't get it done then we may be looking at a similar 2021 season.
I will say there's a lot of questions that already surround this team. I think this is you could make an argument and say that this is Indiana's most important game of the season. Obviously, Coach Allen's going to tell you that because it's the next one, but it is the first one. This one is going to set the tone. If they come out and fall flat tonight, or if they come out and don't perform up to their standards, there's going to be even more questions. Those questions are only going to get louder. They're going to multiply. So I think this is a crucial matchup for Indiana, and it is their most important.
I'm going with Indiana as my team. I'm going to go, I think I'm actually going to add one more point. I'm going to go 24-21 Indiana. I'm just going to take yours, but just add a little bit right
What is
there.
this, Price is Right? Come on.
Exactly. That's exactly what this is. And it would be a very interesting way, I think a very exciting way to get the season going if it's a narrow one throughout. But we all have 3 Indiana predictions, 1 Illinois prediction. The Debbie Downer, Evan Gerike, letting us all down, not making it a perfect 4 of 4. It's typical Evan, isn't it? But that is going to do it for our show here today. Thank you very much to Mason, Callie, and Evan. I've been Jack Edwards for the Hoosier Network. Everyone, have a great Hoosier Game Day.